live from a water-damaged basement in Prince George's County, Maryland. We're here for another edition of my social distancing concerts. This is a special one. It's the first social distancing concert that we're holding on a national holiday. Today's obviously Mother's Day. Um, when I scheduled this concert last Sunday, when I mentioned it, did I realize that it was Mother's Day today? Maybe. Did I forget that it was Mother's Day all the way up until like Thursday of this week? Possibly. Is the gift that I got from my wife still not due to arrive until Tuesday of next week? Could be the case. Could be the case. So uh, we we didn't necessarily intend to do this on a holiday, but here we are. For those of you who are here, you did the right thing. You left your mother sitting at the dinner table by herself, or the mother of your children sitting at the dinner table by herself to come listen to me play songs from a water damaged basement. So you're obviously doing the right thing. You've made some great choices in life. So I commend you on that. Thanks for being here, especially during a holiday. Shout out to all the moms. Shout out to my wife. Shout out to my mom, my beautiful mom, who I got to see today. Thank God for that. I know a lot of people didn't get to see theirs today. So, yeah, we'll dedicate this show to the moms tonight who are here. I'm going to play in its entirety my latest album, my latest record, which we put out last year. This is called The Flood in Color, this record. And this is an album that I made. The producer of it was a guy named Kenneth Pattengale, his band is the Milk Carton Kids. And yeah, Kenneth and I worked on this together for years. We worked on this for like 2 or 3 years. I first met Kenneth almost 10 years ago. He came to a show. I was opening for Justin Townes Earle at the Echo in Los Angeles. And Kenneth showed up at the show, and he was just somebody who came. He didn't have a band or anything at that point. He just showed up at the merch table and was like, "Hey, man, I really like that. Nice work." And we struck up a friendship then. And then obviously he went on to do wonderful and great things with the Milk Carton Kids. And we've always stayed in touch ever since. And yeah, so when I got a hold of him to work on this album, I was keen to have somebody that could help me write, that could help me edit the songs that I was working on. So for about a period of 2 or 3 years, I sent him songs for this record, and I must have sent him 20 or 30 songs over the course of the first year, and he didn't accept any of them. It was a pretty rigorous process, and after a while, he started to accept more and more. After about a year and a half, he accepted the first one, and that's actually the very first song on this album. So I'm going to start with that. This is the first song that we decided was a keeper. It's called Exit. I will find you at the exit of my highway. I will find you at the bottom of my glass. No drink is strong enough. No drink is strong enough. No drink is strong enough to still my shaking hand. On a highway west of Davenport and Kansas, in the moonlight of a broken red roofing, no night is dark enough to tell you where I've been. And I will find you in the arms of yet another. I will find you in her medicated eyes. No God is cruel enough. No God is cruel enough. No God is cruel enough to pay me back in kind. I will find you painting crosses in the courtyard. I will find you walking backwards with a child. No fall is high enough. No fall is high enough. No fall is high enough. That's track one off the Flood and Color, and it's the first song that we decided was a keeper for the record, As Dark as It Is. And as dark as it is, we put it first to set the tone for the record. This next one, the title track of the album, this doesn't happen to me often, but I was going to bed, and as I was going to bed that night, this phrase popped into my mind. And I thought to myself, you should get up and write that down. And then I also thought to myself, I'm damn tired. I'm just going to go to sleep and I'll remember it in the morning. But I'm old enough and wily enough at this point in my life to know that when you go to bed and you have an idea, you can remember it, but never quite the way that it was actually phrased when you thought of it the night before. It's always off by just a little bit. And being off just by a little bit, you might as well be off by 180 degrees at that point. So I dragged my bones out of bed to go find my phone to plunk it down, and I'm glad that I did. I just kind of wrote that phrase down, let it sit there. I knew it was going to be the album title, and then shortly before we went in to do the record, I thought, well, maybe I'll take a swing at writing a song for the album title, and this is what I ended up writing. Clap of lightning, I awakened to a foot of water standing in my basement. It started rising, it took me under. The flood is coming. This is not history in black and white now. In a perfect storm there isn't any high ground. The end of childhood, the end of summer, the flood in color. They tried to warn me, I wouldn't listen. Yeah, now all at once I'm drowning in my kitchen. My legs are broken from treading water. The flood is coming, the flood is coming. I tried to bargain, I tried to reason, but the sky was deaf, the rain was never ceasing. It's not some cheap bed that I can cover. The flood in color, the flood in color. So listen close now. I was dead wrong to think that things could work themselves out in the long run. Pay attention, heed the thunder. The flood is coming, the flood in color. there's the title track after it came to me in basically a dream. Let's see where all you guys are at tonight. Drop me a comment here and let me know where in the world you are. Buck Francis is in Boston with an emoji. What's up? I miss Boston already. I was just there recently. You know what Bill Burr calls Boston? He calls it a racist San Francisco. All right. Rob Price is in Austin. Evans in Durham, North Carolina. Allen's in Phoenix. Right on. Cedar Rapids for Derek. Derek, have you ever seen the movie Cedar Rapids with Ed Helms? I think you'd dig it. Matthew's in Houston. Yossi's in New York. I hope you're safe up there in New York. Bellingham, home of the Green Frog. Nashville. All right, you guys are all over the place. Love it. Emma's in London, watching the show at what must be, what's it, like 3 in the morning there? And Mark, you're in Melbourne, Australia. It's like the morning there, man. Are you drinking a beer right now? You probably are because you're Australian. And you guys are nuts. All right, cool. Well, I'm glad to see you guys are, thanks for joining from all over the place, man. It's so inspiring to see everybody here. So inspiring. Well, I guess, every album, you'd like to say that you don't have favorite songs because it's kind of like choosing a child. But if you were to say that, then you'd be a liar. And this is pretty close to my favorite song on this record, my personal favorite song. The night's so long, you can almost hear it groan. The night's so long, you can almost hear it groan. And we walk so far that our shadows turn to stone. It was a wretched room, we hung up Christmas lights. It was a wretched room, but we hung up Christmas lights. And the girls played house while the neighbors froze outside. Brace yourself for the letdown. The Holy Ghost with his hands out. No peace on earth is cheaply found. Do you see my colors now? She had long black hair, and you bought everything she sold. And she had long black hair, and you bought everything she sold. And she taught you the fine points of doing just as you were told. Brace yourself for the letdown. The Holy Ghost with his hands out. No peace on earth is cheaply found. Do you see my colors now? Do you see my colors now? That's The Letdown. It's one of my personal favorites. This is the customary time in the show where I check my text messages to see if I have a text message from either my mom or my manager telling me that the sound sounds like dog crap. So let's see if I have either one. Mom says, best sound yet. And on Mother's Day, no less. We're rolling, you guys. We're rolling and doing very well. Thanks, Mom. And no text message from the manager saying it sounds bad. Um, let's keep it rolling. Like a morning star, like a firstborn son, well, my blistered heart has been lifted up, and through narrow eyes I have seen so long. Now my road is wide and my grievance gone. In my own, my own, my own, my own, my own long midnight is done. Like a steady job, like a heavy rain, I'll be close at hand when they call my name. I couldn't say as much even yesterday, but I have seen the flood and my heart is changed. In my own, my own, my own, my own, my own long midnight is done. In my own, my own, my own, my own, my own long midnight is done. That's Long Midnight off The Flooding Color. If you're noticing the theme here on this album, it's that all these songs are really short. Though it's a 10-song album and it's like 26 minutes long or something like that. And there was a conscious choice on the part of myself and the producer, Kenneth. We both loved all those old Beatles records where, you know, if you back in the day, they used to have like the minute amount of every song on the record, and you could look by and, you know, all the Beatles ones would be like 2 minutes 15 seconds, 2 minutes 45. The big long ballad would be like 3 minutes 15 seconds. Then, you know, you'd have a song like a minute 45. And we just thought that that was really cool. And we thought that they, you know, it's the Beatles. They got the point across with all the songs, and they did it in such a short amount of time. And so we were really conscious of that. We cut these songs down to their bones and made them really short. And uh, when we were doing business with some people that thought it was too short to qualify as an album, my point was just like, well, if it's too short for people and people like it, they should just play the album again. And that's fine. That's what I do with albums that I love, is I just play them again. So that's why all the songs are so damn short. Let's take a few questions here. If you guys want to jump in the comments and throw some questions my way, I love conversing with everybody. I'll take this compliment first. Short albums are the best. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. That's the way I feel about most of them. You know. Damn. Oscar coming in from Mexico City. Right on, man. Jacob asks, favorite poets. I love Dylan Thomas. It's hard to beat Dylan Thomas. He's really great. His poem Fern Hill is a favorite of mine. I think I've read that on here, or maybe I've read it on the podcast. And he also has a lot of poems that I love. The titles of which are not coming to mind right now. What were you listening to while making this album? You know, I'm listening to a lot more music now. These days, I'm listening to a band called Pine Grove that I really love. But I go through periods where I just don't listen to any music at all for really long periods of time. And then when I do like something, I'll like devour it just over and over and over and over again until I basically know the whole album, and then I don't listen to it again. So a long time before this, I'd been listening to this album by Father John Misty called Fear Fun. It was his first album under that moniker, and I really loved that, and I devoured that around 2014, 2013. But during the writing of this record, I really wasn't listening to too much music at all, which is strange, I know. Favorite meal that my mom used to make? It's Mother's Day, of course. My mom didn't really become, my mom's a very good cook now, but she didn't really become a good cook until my sister and I left the household, if I can be completely blunt, when she had more time on her hands. It was a lot of chopped up hot dogs and macaroni and cheese for my sister and I when we were growing up. Although that's giving mom the short end of the shift for sure. No, she cooked a lot, but uh, it, I'll put it this way: there's a lot less hamburger helper these days than there used to be. Uh, and I really kind of threw mom under the bus there. It was kind of fucked up on Mother's Day. Um, let's see. Favorite guitar player? I like that question. Well, there's a couple people that I really like. Steve Earle's an amazing guitar player, especially for the type of stuff that I do, like finger picking stuff. You can learn a lot from Steve Earle, and I did learn a lot from touring with him back in the day. He's great. That's for like a finger style um, guitar, where some people call it Travis picking, when you have the thumb doing the bass line and the fingers picking out a melody line. And I guess Steve would do something amounting to Travis picking. I guess I would do something amounting to Travis picking. As far as like a flat picking guitar, like that type of stuff, there's a guitarist named Norman Blake, who's amazing, who you would probably know his work because if you listen to the Oh Brother We're Out There soundtrack, anytime you hear a guitar playing and you're like, that guitar sounds awesome, that's Norman Blake playing it. So he has a lot of albums. He has an album called Live from McCabe's, and McCabe's is a guitar shop just north of LA that holds concerts of really cool musicians. And if you get Norman Blake live from McCabe's, you can hear some really extraordinary, unique, and inspired guitar playing. Norman Blake is a giant. Um, let's see, a little bit more. Just do a couple more questions. I just have fun doing these questions so much. So let me just do a few more. Um, Jonathan asks, is there any one thing that you would say particularly and consistently inspires you to create art? No, but I think that's the whole job is, inherently, if you come up to something, if it's a book, if it's a poem, if it's another song, if it's a relationship that you're in, if it's a friendship that you have, if it's somebody that you admire, when you come upon that thing and you're inspired by it at first, um, by definition, that's gonna kind of fade over time. So I think the job of an artist is to learn how to stay inspired, and I think that's a really hard thing to do, to stay in that space where you're staying inspired, and that's particularly a hard thing to do without the constant use of substances, to be completely frank. And I think that's why a lot of people fall into that trap. I think that's why I've almost fallen into that trap a couple times, and uh, it's really hard to stay inspired. But to do it, I follow what interests me. I, this is going to sound corny and weird, but 4 or 5 years ago, I decided I was tired of listening to music, and I'd really like to learn how to cook. And so I was like, well, if that's what I'm interested right now, then I'm just going to learn how to cook and do that. And so I followed that piece of inspiration, but inevitably, even from that, I found ideas and themes and techniques that you're able to apply to writing and to music. If you do anything with quality, or you attempt to learn how to do it with quality, it will have ideas and themes and techniques that you can apply to other things, I think. So I would just say that's the whole job, is to stay inspired, and you don't have to keep yourself in a very narrow lane of what that inspiration could be. It could be exercise, it could be cooking, it could be books, it could be a relationship, it could be whatever. But the whole point is to stay inspired, and hopefully to stay inspired without having to drink a handle of Jim Beam and take a palm full of pills, because that is not going to end well. I'll take one more question here before I play a few more tunes. Let's see. Rusty Cotton. Hell of a name there, Rust. Do you typically whittle 20, 30 songs down to 10 for an album? I do typically write a lot more for an album. For this particular one, we wrote, I would say 70 songs for it. I don't know, maybe give or take 5 songs. We wrote about 70 songs. And I think that that's a really important thing to do. I mean, why would you not? Why would you not try to write as many as possible? And inevitably, I would say the first 15 I always throw away. I'm working on a new album right now, writing it. I've only gotten about 10 songs written, and I don't think I'm going to keep any of them, but I'm totally fine with that. I figure I still have to write 5 or 6 more songs before I even have a keeper. So yeah, I always tend to overwrite. Other people are different. You know, other people like to just go into the studio and be inspired. And I get that, and people have had a lot of success with that. That's just how I do it. I like to overwrite, be kind of over prepared, and that way when you get into the studio, you have a lot to you got a lot to work with. All right, I'm going to play a few more tunes here. Thanks for the questions, everybody. I'll do a few more of those and some requests at the end of this album here, and then we're also going to have. Not only are we going to have Soft Boy Poem Corner this week, but we're also going to have a special guest joining us in a few minutes. I woke up after breakfast. I left her bedroom late. The streets were filled with strangers, half expecting a parade. I never saw it coming as the first applause began. Then the blues came down on the heels of a marching band. Silver on my fingers, sugar on my tongue. My father stood behind me and he asked what I'd become. I said I speak a language that you'll never understand. Then the blues came down on the heels of a marching band. Blues came down, blues came down. They said the truth and justice must be their own reward. I grew rich pretending, while the honest all went poor. Don't you play dumb about it when you're on that witness stand. Why the blues came down on the heels of a marching band. Yeah, the blues came down on the heels of a marching band. Blues came down. That was one of those songs that that wrote itself pretty quickly. That one. It's always fun when they do that. Yeah, I'm going to play one that I never play in concert. Forgive me if I don't get this guitar part exactly right. It's actually on an open-tuned guitar in the studio. So I tried this week and this afternoon to cobble together a standard tuning version of this song. You don't have to love me to prove yourself right. People can change, that don't mean that you lied. I'm broken in half, but I'll sleep the night through. Instead of standing guard in the moonlight of your room. I followed your footsteps, they led to St. Paul. Yeah, I taught you to smoke and you taught me to call. And I bought you a ring, but you thought it too soon. And then I turned to stone in the moonlight of your room. The streetlights are golden on my empty hands. What makes a good boy don't quite make him a man. And these chains look so weak in the late afternoon, but they hold me fast in the moonlight of your room. Yeah, they hold me fast in the moonlight of your room. All right, we got through that without a disaster. On the guitar part, let me text our guest to let him know that he's coming on now. Let me just tell him. Throwing to you now. So hopefully he'll get this and he'll be good to go. Please welcome the dude that helped me make this record and an amazing and talented musician and writer himself, Mr. Kenneth Pattengill of the Milk Carton Kids.
Hello, Joe.
Dude, what's up?
How's it going?
How are you, brother?
I'm good. That was the song that I had to fight you to let on the album, huh? Is that why you're talking shit about it?
Yeah, it was still a mistake, but you know.
What? No, it wasn't. That was beautiful. Even what you just played was beautiful.
Thank you, man. How you doing? How you riding out this thing right now?
Pretty good.
Right on.
You know. No, I mean, what? I'm very sad for all the people that have trouble going to sleep at night because they don't know what tomorrow's like, and I'm very sad about all the people dying. And then outside of that, I'm just over here doing home improvement projects.
Yeah, I've scraped. I've had a heat gun to a door on more than one day scraping paint myself over here. Talk to me a little bit about, you were a really sure hand producing this record. Where did you learn how to produce records from? Like, whose style as a producer when you were younger did you look at and study and copy before you came up with your own style?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't know if there's any one archetype. I feel like it's like a collision of all of the things that worked and didn't work for decades and decades. And then the people I started helping, the records started to turn out well. So I thought maybe I had figured something out. But with that said, I did always look, probably the closest two you could look to are T-Bone Burnett and Joe Henry. They both for maybe at a certain point for different reasons, but not totally dissimilar reasons. They are huge proponents of getting all of the elements in a room together live and letting it happen that way, and sort of using those as your goalposts. Mm-hmm. That resembles what I like to do in the end, though again, after getting to know both of them pretty well, I have some insight into why they do that, and I think the reason why I do that is maybe a little bit different, but it's just music.
So without getting into the reason that they do it, why do you do it differently?
Yeah, well, I think that it's and I've made a few records before and a few since that are complete departures from that methodology. And when it you have to tailor each project to whatever needs exist. And to me, the projects that make use of that philosophy the most are the ones where that essence can still come together in an environment like that. And what it does is it declutters all of the distraction around it. that would otherwise get in the way and cloudy the message or cloudy the sound. Some things are just actually not possible to put together that way, and that's totally fine. But a record like yours, or a few months before we made yours, I made a record for Joy Williams, and that was the same thing. We could have sat there and put things together piece by piece, but there were all sorts of reasons why that would have been not only a distraction and confusing to the process, but it would ultimately get in the way of the voice of hers we wanted to come through. That needed to be more of a spontaneous and inspired live thing, warts and all. She doesn't have very many warts on her voice, but
Do you think that those distractions that could come in when you're doing it a different way, do you think that those would be, for example, I was surprised by how little amount of like second guessing went into the album that we made. Like by the
yeah,
time that we actually got to the studio, there was not like a lot of going back and forth on things. Like we'd already kind of, we had kind of come up with an ethos in a world that we wanted to live in, and it was pretty obvious what things fit in there and what things didn't. Is that the sort of distractions that you're talking about?
yeah, definitely. That's one of them. Um, yeah, that, I guess, you know what, you put it a good way. That's probably the primary distraction, which is the problem of having too much choice, or not having an idea of something that's right there and attainable, and what you're trying to pick out of the air. And yeah, what we did when we had Phil Kronengold come around and Dennis Crouch come around was we had a real clear idea of what was going to be contributed, and then if it didn't work, we could problem solve from then. But on this record, as you remember, most of the ideas worked. It's just it's a folk music album
Right.
in the end. But yeah, that's exactly right. Because if you haven't thought of those decisions on the way in, the human brain wants to hear every which option.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, it's
and the human brain at the end of the day wants to lose sleep over those options and
yeah,
figure out which is whatever is cool, but try something different on the next album then.
right. When you're choosing musicians and people to play on a record, obviously first and foremost would be their ability to play. But how much do you consider personality? I think of a guy like Dennis Crouch who played bass, who's super accomplished and is probably one of the best bass players in Nashville. But also the thing about making a record with him was that in between cutting songs, we'd be sitting there having coffee, and Dennis would tell us stories for 15 minutes at a time that had everyone slapping their knee and laughing their
Oh
ass
yeah.
off. And that really, it led to a sort of a camaraderie in the room. How much do you consider personality when you're working with musicians?
Well, they don't all have to be Dennis Crouch.
Well, sure. Yeah, that's a hard thing to be. It's a hard
He
thing
can
to be.
really hold court. If you're a piece of shit, you're not going to get hired. I'll tell you that. If you're a downer and you come in and yeah, you bring all the anxiety with you, and you bring all,
Yeah,
that's reserved for the artist. The artist can bring all of that, and hopefully you can walk them through it, or strike a different tone.
yeah,
But that's not going to fly if you're coming in just trying to contribute.
no,
Again, the whole thing, especially like I mean, you're in my record. Uh, Sorry, that's a sentence. Your record that I helped with
yeah,
was a very specific thing that we talked about for years, and I think that approach and that um, carefreeness that we endeavored in the studio was purposeful, and that
yeah,
doesn't necessarily have to be the thing.
right,
And so, in that circumstance, Dennis Crouch is absolutely the guy. If we had a different, if we were endeavoring something different, odds are Dennis Crouch might have still been the guy.
right, yeah,
Um, but maybe some of the other people wouldn't, or maybe we would have tried to track it in a way that was less organic or less present and live.
sure,
Um, but yeah, absolutely, all of those things play together, and all of those things add up. And then, of course, the big one, like everything in life, it all kind of depends on how much time you've got and how much money you've got.
yeah, yeah. We had plenty of time, but not that much money for that record.
Yeah.
Um, so thanks for joining us. What are you working on right now? Are you working on another Milk Carton Kids album? Are you producing for people? You and I are working on a new one together. But besides that, what are you working on?
Yeah, building a pot rack in my kitchen.
Okay,
So I'm working on.
good. Well, I hope that all the instructions from Crate and Barrel arrived
Yeah,
in full form, and I wish you the best of luck with your pot rack, my friend.
thank you. No, I've invented it. It's original design. When I'm done with it, I'll send it to you. You can share with all of the concert goers. I'm sure they'll wait with bated breath.
Okay,
the
everyone, we're going to make a
reveal.
separate email list for this, just for the designs to Kenneth's pot rack, so you can sign up for that after the show
Yeah, and
tonight.
you have to, like, as it goes with email lists, like we all know, you don't opt in. You will automatically be opted in, and you'll have to opt out.
And even then, you probably can't get out.
Oh, no.
Brother, I hope you are safe and well. It sounds like you are, and thanks for joining us tonight. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you sound great, Joe. Love
Thanks,
you.
brother. Talk to you. Peace.
Bye.
All right, what a guy. Let's play some more music. Well, on a record of short songs, I think this one that I'm about to play right now is the shortest. Here again, what I wouldn't give to completely disappear and then float back down to earth with a heart that didn't want to end up here again. Back and forth, back and forth. It's all fun and games till you find out what you're fighting for is the very piece of chain that held you here in place, wandering back and forth. I keep on waking in the middle of the night to make a promise. Maybe one day I can keep it if I try. Here again, there are voices speaking truth far away. No, I'm hearing them. Can I follow where they lead? Or will I fall asleep and wake up here again? There you go. Shortest song on the record. And now here's the only real political song on the whole album. Darkly political. Surreally, that's a word, right? Surreally political, but political nonetheless. We found you in the street with a list of all our names. There were stars beside the strongest and the weakest. They cut you quite a deal, almost too good to refuse. But some of us don't just worship what's convenient. We thought that our distance was safe, but wickedness can fragile. You are not fragile. You are not fragile. You are not fragile. And your father, rest his soul, the finest man I ever knew, spoke a truth that was clean as an island. He gave them every chance to repeat the party line, but he shattered their windows with his silence. So they took him out back in the rain, and they made him an example. You You aren't half fragile. You aren't half fragile. You aren't half fragile. Now they're rounding up the boys in the nation after war, and they left behind the two-faced and the useless. On the first of every month, the neighbors gather on our lawn, and we dance for their mercy like we're minstrels. They dug up the headstones last night and broke them in the gravel. But you aren't half fragile. 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 Thanks. Thank you, thank you. Here's a tune. This is the last song that we recorded. We had a little bit of time left, and we were about to go home. And then Kenneth remembered that this is a song that I'd written very early in the writing process, and I almost wrote it as a joke. I kind of thought it was a joke song. I've been writing a lot of joke songs recently. I might go in that direction. We'll see. But he said, well, wefore we get out of the session tonight, why don't we just try that? Remember that song you wrote a couple years ago that was kind of a joke? I said, yeah, I do remember that song. And so we went in and we cut this one in like 1 or 2 takes. Kenneth played an awesome guitar solo on the record that unfortunately, obviously we can't recreate here. But this is called The Stranger I've Been. Have you noticed a young man about just my height, coming and going at all hours of night? Did he knock on your front door? Did you let him in? Are you familiar with this stranger I've been? Are you familiar with this stranger I've been? Well, I started out honest and true to my word, but somewhere I lost it. I took a wrong turn. Now it's over, and oh how the disguise has worn thin. Are you familiar with the stranger I've been? Are you familiar with the stranger I've been? You can fit all he stands for on the head of a pin. Are you familiar with this stranger I've been? Are you familiar with this stranger I've been? And just like that, we're at the end of a record. We're at the end of all my records. That means I'm going to have to write a new one. But all the songs that I've written for it so far are what you would call trash. So it's not going to come out until we can make them not sound like trash. The album closes with this one. This is also one that I never play live, so it's nice to get a chance to play it. All those years of blood, sweat and tears you cried, you got less to show then you have to hide. Well, Lady Luck and all her charms, I never known her. I'm just a man with empty hands and broad shoulders. You could have had a wife, instead you made a name. The monuments you built look smaller by the day. She took you back, you kissed her lips, but they were colder. You're just a man with empty hands and broad shoulders. Brother let you mock from knowing wrong from right. Just went off to war, he won't get out alive. He was a son, he was a friend, he was a soldier. You're just a man with empty hands and broad shoulders. That's The Flood in Color. Thanks for being here for this. I'm going to jump over to the comments right now. I'd love to play a few requests for you guys before we leave for the night. Oh, there's a good question here. Gary asked, is the mention of the flooded basement in the color the same as the water damaged basement that you're in now? No, but close. Very close. Let's see. Can you say happy birthday to my husband, Andrew? Of course I can, Ashley. Andrew, happy birthday. However old you are, my friend, very happy birthday. Let's see. Oh, I did say that I was going to learn Downbound Train. Oh, you know what? We forgot to do Soft Boy Poem Corner. We can't let that go. Hold on. We're going to do Soft Boy Poem Corner before we leave for these requests. So here we go. Boom. This is a song, a poem that my friend Vivian sent me that I love. It's by Wisława Szymborska. Here we go. Soft Boy Poem Corner for this week's social distancing concert. This is On Death Without Exaggeration. It can't take a joke, find a star, make a bridge. It knows nothing about weaving, mining, farming, building ships, or baking cakes. In our planning for tomorrow, it has the final word, which is always beside the point. It can't even get the things done that are part of its trade, dig a grave, make a coffin, clean up after itself. Preoccupied with killing, it does the job awkwardly, without system or skill, as though each of us were its first kill. Oh, it has its triumphs, but look at its countless defeats, missed blows, and repeat attempts. Sometimes it isn't strong enough to swat a fly from the air. Many are the caterpillars that have outcrawled it. All those bulbs, pods, tentacles, fins, tracheae, nuptial plumage, and winter fur show that it has fallen behind with its half-hearted work. Ill will won't help, and even our lending a hand with wars and coup d'etat is so far not enough. Hearts beat inside eggs, baby skeletons grow, seeds hard at work spout their first tiny pair of leaves, and sometimes even tall trees fall away. Whoever claims that it's omnipotent is himself living proof that it's not. There's no life that couldn't be immortal if only for a moment. Death always arrives by that very moment too late. In vain it tugs at the knob of the invisible door. As far as you've come, can't be undone. Wisława Szymborska for the win. Thank you for all the people reminding me to do Soft Boy Poem Corner. Okay, I'm going to do a few requests. I saw this request from earlier in the comments, and I saw it from last week. And I was remiss for not playing it last week, so I'll play this one now. And I've come to know the wish list of my father. I've come to know the shipwrecks where he wished. I've come to wish aloud among the overdressed crowd. Come to witness now the sinking of the ship, throwing pennies from the seat top next to it. And I've come to roam the forest past the village with a dozen lazy horses in my cart. I've come here to get high, to do more than just get by. I've come to test the timber of my heart. Well, I've come to test the timber of my heart. And I have come to be untroubled in my seeking. And I have come to see that nothing is for naught. I've come to reach out blind, to reach forward and behind. For the more I seek, the more I'm sought. Yeah, the more I seek, the more I'm sought. And I've come to meet the sheriff and his posse, to offer him the broadside of my jaw. I've come here to get broke, and then maybe bum a smoke. We'll go drinking 2 towns over after all. We'll go drinking 2 towns over after all. And I've come to meet the legendary takers. I've only come to ask them for a lot. They say I've come with less than I should rightfully possess. I say the more I buy, the more I'm bought. Yeah, the more I'm bought, the less I cost. I have come to take their servants and their surplus. I have come to take their raincoats and their speed. I've come to get my fill, to ransack and spill. I've come to trade the harvest for the seed. Well, I've come to trade the harvest for the seed. And I've come to know the manger that you sleep in. I have come to be the stranger that you keep. I've come from down the road, and my footsteps never slowed. Before we met, I knew we'd meet. Oh, before we met, I knew we'd meet. And I've come here to ignore your cries and heartaches. I've come to closely listen to you sing. I've come here to insist that I leave here with a kiss. I've come to say exactly what I mean. And I mean so many things. And you've come to know me stubborn as a butcher. And you've come to know me thankless as a guest. But will you recognize my face when God's awful grace strips me of my jacket and my vest, and reveals all the treasure in my chest. That one got requested last week, and again this one, so I wanted to do it. Thanks for being here with me. Thanks for listening to the tunes. Thanks to Kenneth Pattingale for joining. I'm going to play one more request here, and I thank you if you have the opportunity to buy a ticket at one of these addresses below. That would be awesome. It would help me very much while I'm unable to tour. That would be great. So let's see. I'll find one more request to do, and then we'll do that. Lots of disguised as someone else's. All right. I had the lyrics out last time that I did this. So, and I don't have those in front of me now, but I think I can do it. We'll end on that one. That's a good one to end on. Oh, I wish that I could come to you disguised as someone else. Oh, I wish that I could come to you disguised as someone else. Help you lift your luggage from the platform to the train. Ask you for directions that I don't need explained. You would never think to ask my name. Let's not put it lightly, I put us both through hell. So I wish that I could come to you disguised as someone else. And I wish that I could work for you with someone else's hands. Or I wish that I could work for you with someone else's hands. Be behind the counter of a bookstore that you're in. Charge you $7 for a crossword and a pen. You would leave and not look back again. Even hardened criminals, they get a second chance. So I wish that I could come to you from someone else's hands. Oh, I wish that I could come to you, could run to you, could sing to you. A stranger in your neighborhood who doesn't mean a thing to you, singing now a long forgotten song. On and on and on. Oh, I don't have the stomach to face you as myself. So I wish that I could come to you disguised as someone else. Or I wish that I could come to you disguised as someone else. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks to all the moms out there. Thanks to my mom. Love you, Mom. And I will see you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat place. We're going to play my album called In the Meantime, and I'm also going to play a couple B-sides that I've never played before. So I'll see you next week, and I hope you guys stay healthy, safe, and prosperous. Until then, peace.